Okay, folks, now back to Ottawa's efforts to evacuate those Canadians who want to get out of Israel. Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly and Canada's Chief of Defence Staff held a news conference last hour to outline the plans.
We'll begin the assisted departure of Canadians from Tel Aviv in the coming days, by the end of the week, with the help of aircraft from the Canadian Armed Forces. They will arrive in Tel Aviv and bring Canadians to Athens. My colleague, Pablo Rodriguez, and I have been working on the next steps from there. Together, we have secured with Air Canada a plane and a crew to bring Canadians home from Athens. These flights will be available to Canadian citizens, their spouses, and their children, as well as to Canadian permanent residents, their spouses, and their children. Let me be clear, this includes dual nationals, because a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian.
CBC's Janice McGregor is covering this part of the story for us from Ottawa. So Janice, why is Canada doing this evacuation given that Israel's international airport is in fact operating?
That's right. And other countries, the US, the UK, Germany, the minister acknowledged, are not taking this step at this point. Canada, among its allies, sort of among the first, although overnight, Australia also starting to get a plan in place and working with Canada on that. We had seen some other countries come in with evacuation flights for their nationals fairly early on. Mexico, Portugal, Brazil, I believe Spain, most recently. But this is not sort of a straightforward question of when you need to do this or exactly how to kind of explain the rationale. As you say, this is not a situation as we had, for example, in Afghanistan or in the face of other emergency crises around the world where there wasn't an open airport, there weren't commercial flights going. I looked at the departures board for Ben Gurion. There are commercial flights still leaving and more scheduled as the week goes on. So why do this? Here's Joly trying to explain.
Usually when there are still commercial flights, we don't do assisted departure. This is quite rare. But as people were seeing their flights going to Canada canceled or indefinitely delayed, we had to step up and take a decision to do so.
It became clear over a number of days that Canadians needed our assistance getting out. So we were having increased calls to our emergency watch and response center. And it was clear that commercial flights were getting harder and harder to access.
Air Canada, indeed, deciding not to fly over Israel at this point. There were calls, conservative critic, diaspora community, increasingly anxious about this. Did that kind of force their hand somewhat? It will be driven by demand, exactly how many flights are involved with this air bridge they're setting up. The military CC-150 aircraft from the Canadian Forces is only going as far as Athens. From there, it will be an Air Canada flight that they book onward to a Canadian destination. Now, will it just stop with this or will there be more? Some talk at this news conference of those in the West Bank wanting to leave via Jordan, perhaps setting up the option of commercial flight out of Jordan for people who go in that direction. And of course, not lost on anyone is the fact that there are, as was acknowledged, Canadians in Gaza right now, but getting them out, very difficult indeed, given the security situation in Gaza at the moment. They just sort of alluded to sort of more details about how to help people who can't get to the airport in Tel Aviv being still to come. They are doing a technical briefing for journalists as the day goes on. We'll see if we learn more. Wayne Eyre, the Chief of Defence Staff, did acknowledge there's an opportunity cost to putting these flights on. It means the military isn't doing other things it would be doing, but pointing out there is no more important thing than keeping Canadian citizens secure, and so that's why they're proceeding here.
We also learned a bit more about the number of Canadians who've been caught up in and affected by this crisis, Janice. What did we learn there?
That's right. So we now know that there are 2 confirmed dead and a third presumed dead. There was a name of a woman mentioned at the news conference on social media. Her family is posting that she has passed, that her body has been found. The minister and officials explaining that they have not yet actually confirmed that with Israeli officials, but at this point working on a presumed dead basis as consular assistance proceeds in that case. There are also 3 Canadians who are missing at the moment. Now, does missing mean taken hostage, or does missing just mean missing? The U.S. has confirmed that there are hostages being held by Hamas who are U.S. citizens. Mélanie Joly would not say that today. Reporters tried. Take a listen.
Of course, I will not confirm whether Canada has any hostages because I don't want to increase the value and put their lives in danger. What I can say, though, is we've been in contact with the chief negotiator of hostages in Israel, and Canada will be sending a team of experts to support him and his team in his work.
So that's one kind of talks going on, but a bigger geopolitical conversation underway. Joly saying she has been in conversation with the White House. There will be more coming out on that, potential sort of visits to the regions, additional diplomacy. This all seems to be up for discussion. Joly saying she's very concerned about the Middle East now becoming a second front at a time when they had been trying to focus on the war in Ukraine. Now the world's attention sort of looking at a second major conflict and the costs and risks of that. Very difficult. Specifically, she said she is going to be speaking with Lebanese officials later today. This fear that there could be conflict perhaps in the north with Hezbollah, in addition to what's going on in Gaza with Hamas, making things very unstable inside Israel and really, becoming a preoccupation not just for the Israeli government, but the world as a whole, that obviously has an interest in things de-escalating and stabilizing in this region.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa, thank you.